that gives a space, and it's, I think this, and it's still similar to place-based leadership. It gives space for the followers to both co-create the idea, the state they want. But also, I think going to conclude, why we are in a crisis of leadership in Africa is because our leadership trajectory, or how we think about leadership, is tied to the colonial state. And we've never bothered to demystify these colonial ideas of statehood. And so unless we start demystifying statehood in Africa, and this historical trajectory of what statehood is about, we've never, and I think that's what maybe we're trying to do with the 2010 Constitution, when we reduced this central, we tried to devolve the state and that kind of thing. But as Kawive was telling us, even now, very little has happened in devolution. It's just on paper. I mean, there are a few little things that we appreciate. So till we get to that point of demystifying colonial ideas of statehood, and many of our politicians love it because they can continue with that position leadership as opposed to process or place-based leadership, where the agencies or the ordinary people and the local people who matter are placed as the priority. So I'll stop at that.
Thank you. And I also want to appreciate that you are invited to come and interact with you. As you are told, my name is Obondo Kajumbi. I'm a facilitator at the Kenya School of Government, the Nairobi Campus of Administration. Principally, a career civil servant. I worked in public service all my life, but now I'm retired. Looking at the question that has been put before us, how could PBLD methodology be useful for enhancement of leaders and leadership in Kenya? People say contemporary definition of leadership is that it is influence, but nothing but influence. And I was looking at the conceptualization of Midrift and your partners, and I was reflecting on a program we do at the Kenya School of Government called Crime and Violence Prevention. A program that has trained about 2,000 participants between 2011 and last year in November. And we adopted an approach. We said we are not going to do it from the theories we read in books. We will go to specific counties, interact with the communities, and find out what are their safety concerns. What are their security concerns? What do they perceive crime to be? And what is promoting crime and violence? So we would do a baseline survey for about 1 week, do a report, and then invite about 2 participants, 50 participants from 2 different counties. And we did it with Nakuru, Vihiga, we did Kwale, Bungoma, we did Isiolo, Mombasa, and lastly we did Kisumu, Narok. And what has been interesting, when you bring actors from these counties and you put them on a common table, then you get to realize that the issues that concern communities are fairly uniform across board. And that if you want to deal with the issues of prevention and of crime and violence, you must get back to the community. They have the solutions to those problems. And indeed, we have seen some of our graduates go and start. Nakuru has one of the best gender-based unit at the referral hospital. When we took their Bungoma people, they went and started their We have heard people, you know what men think about gender violence. Men think it is their right to discipline their wives. But when we brought in Masais from Narok, there is a team that is in Narok that is now men-led, but talking against FGM. What is it called? FGM. FGM. So I was looking at it and I was asking myself, who really borrowed from the other? Is it us who borrowed from TLB, or are we the ones who borrowed from them? So I think there is a point of convergence, and I am happy to be with you this afternoon.
So good afternoon, everybody. Unfortunately, I missed the warning, so I didn't get to introduce myself, but I also missed the presentation, I think, on the paper, so I'm a bit disadvantaged. But I think the issue of leadership is very close to my heart personally, but also as CRECO. So my name is Regina Pondo. I work for the Constitution and Reform Education Consortium, CRECO. And CRECO is a network of 22 civil society organizations, but also a space that facilitates other conversations, other movements, other organizing platforms on various issues of interest, especially in relation to the Constitution of Kenya. And in particular, we've taken a keen interest on Article 10, as was pointed out, national values and principles of governance. And so one of the things that we also do is convene the technical working group on national values and principles of governance. And some of the members are here today, Inuka and Misisi, CJPC, Mzalendo was here earlier. We're hoping Midrift will now also become an active member amongst many other organizations. And the reason we got together was the feeling that the Constitution is a transformative document. And for it to transform our lives, there is some action, there's a spark that needs to happen. But the heart of that spark is actually in Article 10. So if we just implemented Article 10, did what Article 10 requires for us in terms of values, everything else would fall into place. So there would be no need for processes like the BBI. There would be no need to worry about elections and all the other challenges that we're having if that is placed. So we've taken that as our mission, and we know it's a long-term mission and something that we're going to work on for a very long time. Now, when I was asked to sit on the panel, I didn't really think about it until this morning. And my reflection was, am I the right person to be sitting in this panel? Because when you look at the question of the next generation of leaders, I think we are the past generation. So I can see in the room that we have, not the next generation, they're actually the current generation. We're sort of in the process of handing over the baton. I can see people like Kimani from Inuka, I can see Jabu, I can see Gronia from CJPC, I can see Nicole from Crips. There's a lot of people who I'm glad that they're in the room, I'm glad they're part of this conversation, but I have a feeling that you and I may have failed in not having them on the panel. So, but let's hope that because they're also on social media that the conversation is carrying on. So I think next time, let's also make an effort. I think in the interest of inclusion, but in the interest of, these are actually the majority of Kenyans. When we talk about Kenya, it is the people under 35 all the way to 15, and that's the next generation. So I'll stop there and then I'll make more comments, I think, as we move on.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Kianya. As opposed to my sister here, I think I'm over-advantaged in that I participated in the training, the whole of it, the whole training. Apart from that, I wanted to begin by saying that I've been a leader at Mashinani, whatever you guys call Mashinani. I've been imbibed from Tom Kagwe, from Joshua, my former boss at TCWD, Nawive, Nyongesa. So I'm a product of so many people seated here. And because most of them were my former boss, Kantai, Eden Kantai, I can only say that I'll be at my best behavior, which I'm not used to. I'm a very disruptive element in training and in other activities because I believe in strongly speaking my mind, and I believe in also offering my own solutions to problems that I think persist. For instance, when we left university, I and Githai and a few others started a school, a secondary school that is still in Nakuru, because we believe at that particular time the biggest problem was education for post-election children, and the school is still there. I believe in those solutions that leadership to me is about offering solutions not only to the community but also to yourself. So when we came and there were no jobs, we say, it's not that there are no jobs, it's just that there are no money. So why can't we volunteer to begin a school? When, for instance, about the police, before IPOA came about, we thought now, because there are social media platforms, why don't we even run a whole police station, a virtual police station, virtual, meaning anywhere, where you can report all those police that used to beat you up. But then they used to beat me too. And apart from my sister, Judy, usually joke, every morning I greet and I tell her whether I'm under arrest or not, because that's the first question that we used to ask the police, whether am I under arrest or, because that question usually threw them. You got about a minute before now you could negotiate for any other thing, because they never knew whether you are under arrest or not. So that is that. So I will participate in this forum from that advantage that I've been part and parcel of all this training, but I also know that some of you are not, so I can be able to tell you truly what the picture behind the achievement about the program, where I believe the program could have done more, or the challenges thereof, anything that you want to know about the training of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, the panel, for that intro. So I have a couple of questions maybe that can start us off. Regina, you talked about a very progressive constitution that we got in 2010. We are still not there yet in terms of the implementation. And also in terms of the leaders we choose. And if you go to the slums, the word leader is associated with a politician. Kiongozi. The word leader is associated with a politician. So is it that we are lacking leaders at the local level to identify with? Or is it that this is a country whereby we have the politician agenda and the narrative up to the local level, to a point whereby it's that leader who will tell us what to do, the only guy who can fix everything? You're finding it a problem, because if you go, they'll say, until so and so tells us what you are telling us we're not going to do. Is it the issue of constitutionalism, the rule of law, or it's just that, as Kaka said, that Kenyans are idiots?
Okay, thank you. So that's a very good question, because it's something I reflect on a lot every single day. And yesterday I was in a forum where we were having constitutional conversations, because this year we're celebrating 10 years of the Constitution. And so, we're encouraging each other to think, reflect, and see what's going wrong, what's not happening, what can we fix? If we can't fix, should we throw our hands in the air? What should we do? But yesterday's particular conversation was focusing on advancing equality through the Constitution. Have we made progress on that? Are there opportunities we've overlooked while we're still having challenges? And we noted that we have made gains. So on paper, we've definitely made gains. In fact, Kenya is doing very well, even in comparison to the world. We have guaranteed rights. Not all the rights are guaranteed, but we have rights that are guaranteed, and we have some rights that are aspirational. So when you look at the right to health in our constitution, it's very aspirational, which means it's something we should be working towards. But when we look, as they say, per ground, so we started asking ourselves, what are the challenges? What's not happening? Because we have all the laws, we have the policies, we have the frameworks, we have the ideas and that sort of thing, but it doesn't seem to be materializing. And somebody commented was that we put all our hope in the paper and we forgot the people. And the people are two levels: the people that needed to make the paper real, and the people that need to push, to live it, to that. So that's the area where we need to work. One of the questions that came to me was, yes, it's been very progressive, we made a lot of gains, and we could even cite some of the gains. So the courts, I think, have been very useful in helping us affirm various rights. But when you look at the rights that we have been litigating in court, we have been litigating on Huduma number, digital rights, rights to privacy, 2/3 gender rule, rights for women, rights for youth, rights for... But up to date, nobody has gone to court on the right to freedom from hunger. And yet people die every year in this country from hunger. And Kawiba talked about people escaping the food story. There are people who die every year from hunger, not just in the Turkanas, the Wajirs, and the places that we always see on TV, but even here in Nairobi. But nobody has gone to court to litigate as a public interest litigation on the right to freedom from hunger. So the question becomes, why? Is it because people who are dying from hunger are too weak or preoccupied to organize themselves to push or to get the representation? Is it because there is no leadership that sees this as a problem and a priority? If we can't prioritize food in this country, then we have a big problem. So there is need, I think it has been said, for a mind shift. And I think programs like the place-based leadership start to push us in that direction. And it's good that it's been tried and tested with the police, but we need to explore what can be done with other people who are duty bearers, but also with citizens themselves. So that we have people who are inherently just driven to lead without waiting from the top, without waiting for the people that only have the title, but don't have the ideas, don't have the inspiration, and don't have the transformation in mind.
Thank you. It has been tested by all sectors: civil society, people in government, Ministry of Interior, and also faith-based organizations. Yeah, it has been tested by all the sectors. It's only that we brought here examples from government, but we have very, very fantastic example from the civil society, how they worked together with the police. Thank you. The next question is to Ogondo Kajumbi. We are a country that I went to Tanzania, and the Tanzanian told me Kenya ni taifa bila utaifa. I don't know how to translate it in Greek. So it's a nation without nationhood. So it's a very big problem as a country. If you go outside there, what do you identify yourself as a Kenyan? Who is a Kenyan, for example? It's a very big problem. So that lack of identity that we tried to bring it under the national values interpretation of the Constitution is a big issue, and therefore we cannot celebrate being Kenyan. For example, if we go to Ethiopia, it's very hard to bribe a police officer. It's very, very hard. Ethiopia shares the same border with Somalia, but we get a lot of infiltration from the Al-Shabaab, more coming to Kenya than going to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is also a part of the team in AMISOM. So what's the problem? But my fundamental question is, in Kenya we have tried severally to fix the problem. I remember Moi, after the IMF and the World Bank froze some of the funds, and the president, after the former president-elect, came from the US and formed the Dream Team. Who remembers the Dream Team? To fix the problem. Was the problem fixed? I remember after the celebrated election of Kibaki, where you were beaten after celebrating, sorry for that, we ended up taking a lot of the people from the civil society to go and work with government so that that transformation can be realized. And one of our comrades, Gidongo, felt the heat and ran away. What is the problem? Is it the system? Is it the rule of law? What is the problem?
Well, I don't know where to begin. But I want to start from the misconception we have about leadership. We seem to think people who hold positions either in government or in high offices in the private sector, are the people who are leaders. But personally, I believe the real leaders are out there in the ground. People who exercise a certain amount of influence among the communities they live. I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a country is that lack of ownership of the republic. You can have 63 billion shillings disappearing in Komoro, but you don't think about it because it does not affect your life. Life continues as usual. I have been asked very many times by people who come to the classes I teach, why don't we have terrorist incidents in South Sudan? Why don't we have them in Ethiopia? I don't think I have an answer for them. When citizens feel that they are not a part of the public, they don't care. When we are picked on to choose which leaders, we have a problem. One is like our value system is upside down. I'll steal, I'll take the money for campaigns, I'll dish it round, and I'll find my way to either the National Assembly or one of those elected positions. We are not able to interrogate the actions and activities of those we have put in leadership. So I ask myself, what can we do? I always say, you start by making the difference. You yourself should be the difference you want to see. Because when we do the kind of programs we do, when you go back to the people, the kind of solutions they have to their problems are very simple. Sometimes they don't even require resources. It may be just education and giving them direction. How many times have we been asked when public resources have been misappropriated, kwani ni ya mama yako? And then you ask yourself, is your mother not a taxpayer? The answer is yes, isn't it? So why don't we rise up to it? I think we have been moved into passivity, and leadership has taken advantage of us.
Thanks a lot for that. Joki, you have worked in slum areas, and the first panel tried to discuss that the way we police, we do policing in poor neighborhoods. It's the same. It's not the same way we do policing in affluent neighborhoods. Is it about attitude, or is a culture?
It's a culture.
And these are issues that we need to discuss, because you are guilty until proven guilty when you're in a slum. So these are issues that we need to really discuss, because it's affecting a lot of you. And unless we discuss it, there might be a revolution coming from those particular slum areas, because one of the juniors alluded here, a very important thing, the issues of perception of marginalization. It's not something that is good, because this can be a ready militia for hire for anybody to revenge on the perceived enemies. So, is it through the way we look at things, and we have leaders in poor neighborhoods?
Of course.
Or only leaders are found in Runda and Budaiga? Because one of the unfortunate things that happened, for example, 2007 was election violence. Did people fight in Runda? Was there post-election violence in Runda? Where was it? Malaya. Where else? Kandora and Kibera. In Nakuru, Ronda, Kaptembwa, and Pondeni slums, there was violence. Milimani, section 58, there was no violence. What is the missing link?
Thank you. I'll respond to those two questions. One, I think back to the same argument I was making initially about the colonial statehood. And so even the police, and I'm glad our brothers and sisters police are here, their culture, we have never really, as much as I know we are calling it now a police service, but it's still colonial in its very nature. How was, the British colonial police? It was meant to be exploitative. It was meant to be, even look at the words we still use, afande. Every time I meet a police officer who wants to be cheeky, I'm like, what is your name? Identify yourself. And they're like, why are you even asking my name? Who the hell are you to ask my name? And I'm like, no, you're a service, you're here for our service. What is your name? And they won't, most of the time they won't even agree. And yet they're supposed to have a little tag, actually. It should even be showing their name, not these numbers. Because, somebody. So, because of that colonial culture, the police force then was meant to be for the colonial state. It was exploitative. It was meant to harass the natives. It was bidding the colonial state. It was not there for the people. It was there for the colonial state to harass the people and to exploit and to get whatever they could, and to, of course, keep them intimidated and harassed. So I keep wondering, and I'm glad that our police people are here. Despite the money pumped, and even Tom with IPOA, despite the money pumped in the police service, the culture still, I see it when I meet like the more senior police. They were very cordial and nice. But once I walk down there, we are back to the same. So what is the missing link? Is it in Kiganjo that you're not, or what is wrong? Of course, you say it's connected to the people and all that, where the people who bribe. But I keep saying, if we change the police, I know, of course, it's complex, but if we just change a little bit, we probably can start addressing to the issues of even, this chapter 6 in other sectors of the Kenyan, of Kenya. So the political culture must change. That colonial police force, they must start being a service now, so that